In the Red Earth village of Alawo, mornings always began with the sound of metal meeting fire. Before the sun fully rose, before farmers walked into the fields, and before traders opened their stalls, the forge was already alive, breathing heat into the cool air. Inside the humble blacksmith shed, fire danced like a living spirit, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. And standing beside that fire, bathed in its warm glow, was a boy named Kofi. Kofi wasn't the strongest boy in the village. He wasn't the loudest, nor was he the most confident, but he worked harder than anyone. Each strike of his hammer was a study in patience, a steady rhythm that echoed through the waking village. Every spark that flew from the anvil reflected in his quiet, thoughtful eyes. The villagers loved him because he was kind. They respected him because he was humble, always ready with a helping hand or a gentle smile. To Kofi, the blacksmith, Baba Tund was not just his master. He was his father, and Mama Saad, the woman who sold delicious food near the market, was his mother. Kofi believed his life was simple, its path laid out before him as clearly as the dirt roads of Alawo. He believed his future was already written in the flames of the forge, to shape iron, to build tools, and to help his village grow. But destiny is like fire. Even when it's covered by ash, it never truly dies. It waits, smoldering, for the right moment to flare back to life. One evening, during the Harmattan season, the air felt heavier than usual. A dusty haze hung over the village, and an unspoken tension seemed to settle with it. Kofi noticed that Baba Tund was quieter than he'd ever been, his usual cheerful banter replaced by a deep, pensive silence. Mama Saad sat at their small dinner table but barely touched her food, her eyes distant and filled with a worry Kofi couldn't understand. Later that night, long after the last embers in the forge had dimmed, Baba Tund called him inside their small home. The oil lamp cast a soft, wavering light on his father's serious face. "Kofi, there is something you must know." The words fell slowly, carefully, each one heavy with the weight of years. Mama Saad moved beside Baba Tund and, with trembling hands, opened a small, tightly wrapped cloth. Inside was a royal necklace, exquisitely crafted from pure gold. At its center hung a pendant, the symbol of a rising sun, an emblem Kofi had never seen before. He stared at it, his mind racing, a profound confusion washing over him. He was silent, unable to form a question. "You were not born here," Baba Tund said, his voice gentle but firm. "You were brought to us as a baby, to protect you." In that moment, the world inside Kofi shifted. The forge, the village, his entire life, everything he had ever known to be true, suddenly felt uncertain. The solid ground he had stood on his whole life had turned to sand. 3 days later, the messenger arrived. He rode into Alawo on a horse that was slick with sweat and exhaustion, its sides heaving. The man's armor was scratched and dented, and his face was etched with fatigue and urgency. He brought news that sent a ripple of fear through the entire kingdom. The kingdom was at war. The king was dead. The messenger explained that years ago, the royal family had been attacked in a brutal coup. It was believed that everyone had perished, but a rumor had persisted for years, a rumor of one missing child. The lost prince, spirited away in the dead of night. As he finished his tale, the messenger's eyes scanned the small crowd that had gathered. His gaze settled directly on Kofi. And then, in front of the entire village, the royal messenger dismounted and bowed low. That night, Kofi sat alone at the forge. The fire was out, the air was cold, and the silence was deafening. He reached out and touched the handle of his favorite hammer, the one he had learned with. Its weight felt familiar and comforting in his palm. He remembered Baba Tund's large hands guiding his own small ones, his voice a steady presence. "Strength is not in power, Kofi," he had said. "It is in control. It is in knowing when to strike and when to wait." He was a blacksmith, a boy from a small village. Now, they were calling him a prince. If he left, would he still be Kofi? Or would he be forced to become someone else, a stranger named Adewale? The boy felt himself torn between two worlds, the life he knew and the destiny he never asked for. The journey to the capital took days. The vastness of the kingdom was more than Kofi could have ever imagined. Great stone walls rose to the sky, and royal guards in shining armor stood at every gate. The city buzzed with the energy of thousands of people, crowds who turned to look at him with a mixture of hope and heavy expectation in their eyes. In the midst of it all, Kofi felt smaller than ever. They called him Prince Adewale. They dressed him in fine silks and taught him the protocols of the court. But inside, he still felt like Kofi. The crown they planned to place on his head felt too heavy, a burden of a life he didn't recognize. He did not want power. He wanted purpose, the same sense of purpose he felt when he shaped a tool that would help a farmer feed his family. The threat of war loomed over the kingdom, a dark cloud on the horizon. Instead of hiding behind the palace walls, Kofi chose a different path. He trained with the soldiers, his body growing stronger, his mind sharper. He spent time listening to the farmers, learning about the land and the struggles of his people. He listened to the merchants, understanding the flow of life in the kingdom. He planned his strategies like a blacksmith plans a complex piece of metalwork, carefully, patiently, with foresight. And when the war finally came to their gates, he did not command from a distant throne. He fought beside his people, not above them. He was on the front lines, his courage inspiring all who fought with him. He was a prince, yes, but he was also a brother, a fellow citizen, fighting for their shared home. Years later, the war was a distant memory, and peace reigned over the land. King Adewale still visited Alawo whenever he could. He would walk through the village, greet old friends, and sometimes he would step into the old forge. He would hold the familiar hammer, feel its perfect balance, and remember. He remembered the lessons learned in the heat and the noise. He remembered that royalty is not about crowns or titles. It is about responsibility. It is about serving the people you lead. And he knew, with every fiber of his being, that sometimes the greatest kings are not born in palaces. They are first shaped by fire. True leadership isn't found in a bloodline. It comes from humility, from a life of service and hard work. It comes from having respect for where you came from and the people who shaped you. Because a leader who forgets their roots can never truly lead their people forward. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of wisdom and courage. See you next time.